I'm that person that still chops wood. I'm that person that still hauls water. I'm that person that's raising three kids, showing them how to farm, showing them how to live off the land. I recently adopted 60 head of sheep. And again, my children are out there with me. My youngest one is 2, and her favorite word is man. So I am that person that still farms and has livestock. Napama practices, which is growing dry crop corn. And now our neighbors upstream might be growing sweet corn, hundreds of acres of sweet corn. And your little plot gets pollinated from these different corns. And so it doesn't grow as well as regular Napama corn would grow. And I've had that happen to me a few times where I planted all white corn, my neighbor planted blue corn, my whole crop turned blue and white. So again, I have to restart that small seed again. And by doing that, I usually go into other tribes looking for Napama planters. And they're hardly ever out there anymore. Napama is a practice that has been practiced throughout different tribes for hundreds of years. Now there's different kind of Napama practice. There's the dry crop farming. There's also practices where they got the farm ready the year before by creating berms to slow the water down so it can start saturating the dirt.
In this area, if it was going to be a particularly wet year, and you would know that by monitoring the snowfall, watching the snowpack in the mountains, you would have an idea of what the irrigation season was going to be like. So if you knew you're going to have a lot of water, then you could plant those crops, namely corn, peas, the different crops, squash, that require water. If you were seeing that you had a meager winter snowfall, then you would break out the other toolbox, which would be lentils, garbanzos, beans, and so in different years, you would be variably successful with these different strategies, which would ensure food security over the long term.
If we can show younger Hispanos in northern New Mexico that the land has incredible value for growing crops and that they can succeed in the 21st century economy, global economy, at a very high level, not just subsistence, but at a very high level, through organic farming and by doing all the traditional crops through an organic lens, I think we can get them to stay on the land and to recommit to what was a traditional lifestyle. Now, writers like Kunstler in his book, The Long Emergency, have talked about the fact that he believes or he projects that in the next 50 or 75 years, certainly in the next 100, we'll probably see the end of this 200, 300-year period of modernity, which means we're not going to be able to get cheap crops from around the world. We're not going to get cheap clothes from around the world because there will be no way to get those products to us, to local markets. And so that we're going to have to essentially go back to the future. And that future is going to be us reconnecting with neighbors, us growing our own gardens, us finding everything we need within a 50-mile radius of where we live.
I think that Native communities could definitely participate more and benefit from a local food economy because that's our tradition. That's what our communities stem from, those, centuries upon centuries of living within and using the natural resources around us.
And so I don't think local is the only term we need to use. I think we need to focus in our own communities and do as much as we can locally. But then I think we need to be conscious consumers and conscious about what we buy that is sustainable in other parts of the world.
I'm a firm believer that we can reestablish, reacclimatize these crops and recreate land races, recreate the crop diversity, and re-indigenize ourselves with the landscape using these crops as our connector.
My dream is that my children will continue to farm, that they'll continue to be in my field, and that they'll continue to hunt and gather and pick the things that are part of our life, that are part of our cultural patrimony. that they'll maintain those relationships that those resources imply. Because for us, it's not about collecting a resource. It's about a relationship to place and a relationship to who we are as Native people and to our ancestors as they go back. It's our relationship that's spelled out in our songs and in our prayers and in our traditions.